Hi there, I'm Joylyn Blake, and I am the director of Scholé Academy, and I am with the dear Miss Vixie Friedman, who is beloved at Scholé Academy, one of our instructors, and I just wanted to visit with her today to find out a little bit about what she is teaching in the coming year, and then to probe her for some other information about what families can expect in a course with her. So, Vixie, how about starting by telling us what it is you teach? What courses do you offer?
Well, I offer 2 sections of American history for middle schoolers and also 2 sections of American literature for middle schoolers. Those are the age group that I just really love.
She loves middle schoolers, and the beauty of these courses is that they can be taken a la carte. You can enroll in strictly the literature or strictly the history piece, or families can choose to enroll in both, and then you get a little discount for enrolling in that bundled opportunity. So Vixie, for someone who is brand new to either online classes or even online classes the way that Scholé does them, what would you tell some of those families to kind of develop their expectation for what they're getting into?
Well, I had a conversation just last week with my son, who's a high school teacher in Las Vegas, and we were talking about, online classes during COVID, and he talked about how horrible it was, how he never knew if the students were there. They didn't have to turn on their cameras, there was no interaction, and he said, "I just felt like I sat there and stared at my computer all day long," and I said, "Wow, okay." My experience is completely different. I said, "Here, the students do have their cameras, it's expected, and they want to have their cameras on because they want to take part in the conversation, and they it would be hard to do that without having your cameras on." And I said, "So we're always conversing," I said, "As a class, we are. Sometimes I'll put them into breakout rooms, and then they'll be able to talk. I'll give them something to discuss. We'll all come back and do that." I said, "But it's very, very much a discussion base where every child is taking part." And, he was like, "Wow, mom, that's completely different than what I experienced."
That's what I hear all the time as well, is that the Scholé online experience is so different from, what others had encountered online. So thank you for, in actual fact and in spoken truth, dispelling the notion that online class has to be, miserable. Because at least what I've heard from your courses particularly, and just in general, is that students are delighting to join in and making real friends online and in their class. So I'm curious, what have you heard from students about what they love about classes with you and classes with each other?
Well, it's interesting. I got quite a lot of feedback, particularly this year. In fact, I even got a note this week and from a student, and they've all said basically the same thing, that they loved the classes, they loved interacting with each other. They really loved how and I don't wanna toot my horn or anything, but they really loved how I was able to present things to them that in a way they didn't feel overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And particularly in the literature class, which really kinda surprised me because, most middle schoolers, they come in never having read poetry or even consider ever writing a poem. And they all said the same thing. We loved the poetry. We loved reading a poem every week. We loved having to write a poem, and then we found out we could. And at the end of the year, I let them choose which poems they wanted, and I put them into a anthology. And
Mm.
so they were able to order that from Amazon, and they all said, "It's so much fun reading everybody's poems, and our families have looked at these, and I never thought I could do those things." And one girl said, "I now when I look at literature, I'm looking for those literary devices that we learned, and I'm understanding so much more, and it's just opened up a whole new world for me."
Mm. It was
So
so touching to me when, I got those messages, from, some students who had been in class with you, rallying, "Can we keep going through the summer?" I mean, what
I know.
student ever wants to keep going through the summer? But, that was beautiful, and I think it was, attesting to the fact that they love the content, and they loved the way that it was facilitated so that they could really connect with each other, connect with you, and connect with the ideas in kind of an unintimidating way. So thank you for that. And anything like from parents, do you hear anything from parents in terms of one, what they're looking for or what they're hoping the kid will get out of the course, or what they discover after their child has taken the course? Anything in that regard?
Well, mainly what I hear from the parents is kind of more toward the end of the year.
Mhm.
And, in fact, I heard from one woman, she said, "You know, this was we realized because of reasons we didn't want to accept, but this had to be our last year of homeschooling."
Mhm.
And their daughter was enrolled in a private school, and she said, she was in both history and literature, and she said, "I'm confident that she's ready for whatever they have for her."
Mhm.
You know, this girl worked hard, and I'm sure she was, you know, she was a hard worker and was willing to do whatever she needed to do, so, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's usually that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, this middle school time, this window for them, is a tender time. It's an important time. It's very formative in their life, that age range. And so I love the fact that they can come online with people who, one, the instructor who really shares a family's values and works to instill that and can be a different voice other than the parent to kind of
Yes,
reinforce some of those things, but then gives the students the opportunity to connect over things that are deep and rich and meaningful and not frivolous, but also, like we said, kind of on a shelf that they can reach, accessible. So, anything else you want to highlight about your course or the students' experience at Scholé in general?
well, I think one thing too that students in both the history and the literature classes have really loved are the Socratic circles. And we do those regularly, not, you know, not on a set schedule, but when there's a topic that really lends it. And it's been good because I've been able to teach them the 5 common topics, and I've noticed that as they've gotten practiced at having these discussions, sometimes the discussion would start to lag, and a student would say, "Oh, well, let's compare this character in this book with the character from last book." And I saw them really be able to grow in their skills to be able to discuss and to think deeply. And it was really through the Socratic circles and having to kind of be forced because they were forced. You know, some students don't like to talk in front of others as much as others, but
Mhm.
they all managed it. Some students loved it, speaking all the time. Some were, you know, but they really grew very much and they all loved it. When I would put on the screen Socratic Circle, there was always, yay!
Oh, well, I love the fact that they can develop an expectation through some rhythms, through some class patterns, but then also there's these little moments of surprise. You want to tell us any pieces of literature or poems, just whet our appetite for some of the things that, like the titles themselves, that people could find in one of your courses?
Well, one of their favorite titles was The Witch of Blackbird Pond in literature.
Mhm.
For boys and girls. They all seem to enjoy that. And then another one was The Devil's Arithmetic, which is kind of a harder topic, but that's the last book they read. And we had a really good discussion about that, about how they were ready now to be able to discuss these harder topics when they weren't at the beginning of the year. And then, of course, the history books that we use, I love them because there's so many pictures. They're more story. In fact, the author talks about them being storytelling books.
Mhm.
And so, you know, they've all said, "I really understand history now." And of course, then it goes right with what they're reading. And so it's really has fit hand in glove.
Yeah. I love that reality and that approach that history is to be taught in the form of a story, and that's what sticks. And any of us who've ever read, little biographies or even historical fiction or anything, those are the things that help us envision a time period in a way that just strictly dates and battles and whatever else aren't going to stay. So I agree with you. The hand in glove aspect of the history and literature is so valuable because it's so memorable to them. It's things that that'll be part of their mental framework forever. So, well, any last words or comments or anything before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited for this new year to begin. I'm having fun this summer, but I'm also missing that interaction with the students.
Well, you are beloved, as I said, and I'm very grateful for what you offer. And I know that families will not be disappointed if they sign up for a course with Miss Vixie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.